Okay, it's 5 o'clock. Are we right to go, Michael?
Yes.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Ordinary Council meeting for the 25th of March 2024. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993, Cowra Council is recording this meeting and will upload the recording to Council's website. By speaking at this meeting, you agree to being recorded and having that recording published in the public domain. Please ensure that when you speak at council meetings, you're respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Cowra Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this meeting. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we gather, the Wiradjuri people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. We have an apology from Councillor Nikki Kiss as she's still ill, and Larissa Hackett, the Director of Environmental Services. Anyone has any disclosure? I need a motion to accept those apologies. Councillor West, Councillor Downing, thank you. All in favour? Disclosure of interest. Any councillors and staff, please indicate in relation to any interest you need to declare what report item you are declaring interest in, whether the interest is pecuniary or non-pecuniary, and what is the nature of the interest. Does anyone, Councillor Smith? Grants, community grant funding. Thank you. Anyone else further? Councillor Watt?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and apologies for being late. I'd like to declare an interest in item 4.6 as a family member is involved in the application, and I will leave the room.
Thank you. Further interest? If that's the case, then we'll move on. We have presentations, no presentations. We have a public forum. There's one member of the public who has registered with the General Manager's Office to speak on an item in the agenda, Scott Vickery, who will speak to item 5.3, recycling service. I will call the speaker by name and ask you to introduce yourself and allow time for any councillor or member of staff, if they have declared an interest in the item, to manage the conflict, which may include them leaving the room for your presentation. You have 5 minutes. If you would come to the lectern, you can turn it on, the red button, the one that says got speaky person on. Oh, the bottom. Oh, yours is different.
Right.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Evening, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to speak once again here. I think, and it's in relation to the MRF back in relation to 2018-2019. The facts of the matter are that back in August 2023, I'll just give a brief pre-say, I had spoken with the MRF staff member who informed me that there were excessive loads of curbside recycling continually being dumped into landfill. This information was also relayed to a friend of mine who had been told the same thing by another staff member at the MRF. Based on that information, I contacted the GM in September last year and informed him of the problem. Paul in turn sought a report from the manager of the MRF, which highlighted issues at the MRF that far exceeded my expectations. That report also formed part of the agenda item number 7.2 of the council meeting on the 25th of September 2023, which I also attended exactly 6 months ago today. That same agenda item highlighted that from January 18 to May 19, the entire curbside pickup from households within Cowra was dumped straight into landfill, whilst council continued to charge homeowners a recycling charge. This can be seen as a clear breach of section 52 of the Australian Consumer Law. It was deceptive and misleading conduct, with some other members of the public referring to it as fraud. It also formed a breach of the contractual arrangement that council had with homeowners, as stipulated in their rates notices under the heading of recycling charge. I therefore find it difficult to understand how this issue wasn't identified by the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor, the General Manager and 7 other councillors at the time, considering they were also homeowners. If it was the case that the then MRF manager failed to adhere to the chain of command, then that's unacceptable. My conservative estimate of monies raised during that time was around the $700,000 mark. I note that the agenda item tonight, 5.3, estimates that the amount of money during that period equates to about $760,000. It is important to remember here that this had had all come about as a direct result of a contract signed with a waste collection service back in 2017, where council saw this contract as an additional income stream to offset the loss of income from aluminium. This had nothing to do with contamination rates, greasy pizza boxes, or the MRF app that was discussed by one particular councillor after I left the council meeting back on the 25th of September. I also had a further meeting with the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and the GM on the 20th of November last year. Council admitted during that meeting that they got it wrong, and the Mayor asked me what would I have done. I responded by saying that firstly I would have notified all residents that due to operational issues to cease using their recycling bins until further notice, and place all recycling into the garbage bins and leave the pickups to once a week. Secondly, for those residents that had already paid their rates, I would have afforded them a rebate on the next rates notice. And thirdly, I would have removed the recycling charge from the 2018-2019 financial year, as this was a period for the most of what was affected. We're looking at 11 months that financial year. It would be fair to say then that this contract with Cleanaway was signed to see an increase in income for council and therefore an arrangement where a profit would be made. I would envisage that this was the case. No one ever signs a contract to lose money. It is also important to note that this matter is currently sitting with the New South Wales Ombudsman's Office, as well as the Minister for the Office of the Local Government, pending an outcome from council here tonight. Mr. Hugh Hogan from the ABC is also awaiting the outcome tonight before going to press. I note in the current agenda number 5.3 that council is recommending that a rebate to those affected by this issue is unlikely to occur due to two reasons. Firstly, to do so would be a logistical nightmare to sort. Secondly, the waste fund wouldn't be able to cope with the rebates totalling $750,000. This course of action would unfortunately see homeowners have to pay for this mistake twice by paying higher rates later on, which is unfathomable considering that a lot of people are already struggling. If council isn't willing to rebate those affected by this error, then two other possible solutions may exist. Firstly, council could apply for a loan and the full amount reimbursed. Or secondly, council to strongly consider waiving any rate rises for this upcoming financial year. For example, if the rates notices have increased about 2.5%, that's just a guess, each year, then that increase would be wiped for this financial year 24-25. This wouldn't mean that if that was accepted, then this increased the rates by 5% for the financial year 25-26 to recoup what they lost the next year coming up. This in essence means that the entire rates notice that I paid this current financial year would remain exactly the same for the next financial year. I also believe that an apology needs to be disseminated to all homeowners in Cowra, outlining the incident that occurred. The fact that it appears in your agenda or on your website isn't as effective, as I believe that most residents wouldn't need to utilise your website, nor would they be digging around in agenda items or reading minutes. Finally, there was a recent suggestion that council could waive the tip fees for this financial year coming up as compensation as an act of goodwill. This would be futile, as it would only benefit those who attend daily or weekly, such as tradies, more so than people like myself who only attend about 4 or 5 times a year. Council has suggested in their recommendation, what is recommended is that council acknowledge the mistake made at the time, acknowledge the reputational damage and seek to rebuild trust from the community by implementing demonstrable measures to increase the waste management, recycling and resource recovery practice of council. That's what appeared in 5.3. The problem with this is that hardly anyone is aware of this issue due to a lack of communication. For example, very few people are aware that part of our exorbitant water rates contributes towards keeping the art gallery and library open. Thank you for your time, and I do hope that common sense can prevail.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Scott? If that's the case, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay, or you could leave when you like. Thank you. The council will note there's 3 separate minutes that we're now confirming. If you would take note of that. I'll take a motion to confirm the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 26th of February. Oh, leave that open. That's fine. Thank you. The minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 26th of February 2024. I have a mover, Councillor Judy Smith, Councillor Paul Smith. All in favour? We'll now take a motion to confirm the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 11th of March. Councillor Paul Smith, Councillor Judy Smith. All in favour? I will now take a motion to confirm the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 18th of March. Councillor Delbo, Councillor Watt. Thank you. All those in favour? Is there any questions? Are there any comments? I'm sorry I didn't ask. Well, okay, carried. Thank you. We now have a mayoral minute about the Central West New South Wales Joint Organisation Board on page 57. Is there any comments? I'll move that. I'll move those minutes from the ordinary mayoral minute, Central West New South Wales Joint Organisation. I'm just trying to find it on page 57. Page 57? I'll move that. Councillor Smith seconded. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Delbo.
Thank you. Through the chair, I noticed under the section Disaster Risk Reduction Program, I was very glad to see this and the use of a program called Sim Tables. I've noticed that Cowra will be having a workshop on it as proposed on the 14th of May. We are listed as bushfire as our risk. I was hoping we could also add flooding to that too, please. And could I have further information as to what that point is and the Sim Tables part, please?
Good night.
I'll try and answer that, Madam Chair. That's it. And the presentation is to the LEMC, the Local Emergency Management Committee, to the various agencies involved there. I can't answer too much about the detail of. That's really what it's for, to present to the emergency management agencies. Is this something you're interested in being involved in? Is it going to be useful to you over and above the data sets that you currently have? So I really, Councillor Delbo, can't tell you much more than that at this point in time.
Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few questions. I'd like to support Councillor Delbo in the highlighting that it says quite explicitly here that some councils have been identified for a focus on flooding and that we aren't listed, and I think it would be very important that we're added to that. From my reading of the report, it says Central New South Wales JO are currently planning community workshops and training sessions. So it's not my impression from this report that it is only for the LEMC, but it would be good, or LEMOs, but it would be good to get clarification on that. And I think if it is, it would be useful if we could perhaps request a workshop with the Goolagong community, specifically as they're the most at risk of flooding and impacts of being cut off by flooding, as we've seen a couple of times over the last few years. Also at the end of page 60 and over to 61, there's a recommendation that elected representatives, general managers and other relevant staff participate in the upcoming community workshops and training. I think it would be very important for us to make sure that we go beyond a recommendation and perhaps a requirement for those staff, because this knowledge is going to be very important for us in our decision making going forward. Two questions. Later in the report, it references a workshop with the Rural Doctors Network. Wondering if we could be provided with a summary of the meeting and any suggestions that we could take on towards our goal of encouraging health professionals to move to Cowra.
We did actually report on that when we went over. Paul went, Vicky and I went to Forbes, to the Rural Doctors Network, and we came back, and what happened was they said they had some money, the Rural Doctors Network had some money granted to them to actually do a survey of what facilities we didn't have, what things we didn't have, and that was to go, they asked us to do their work, to come up with the matters that weren't available, like the surgeries or doctors and number of doctors, number of activities that were happening in our town. So that was the plan. Not sure whether it was really up to us, was it?
We did a report to council
We
afterwards.
did a report to council.
Might have been verbal, but I
I'm
remember.
not sure whether we actually did a report.
I can add a little bit more to that through the chair, that when it was included in the information meeting, the mayor's calendar, I advised council that there'd been a follow-up webinar with myself, business officer, and the office of the Rural Doctors Network, just talking about the rollout of the program, and really balls in their court. They were going to find time to come and speak to the medical fraternity in Cowra and council about, well, what are the strategies? They've received some funding to undertake this program. So what are the strategies that could be put in place to help encourage medical professionals to come to the various LGAs across that region. I've heard nothing since that online meeting I had back whenever that was. Yeah.
And at this meeting, it was only mentioned briefly. It wasn't, at this meeting, it wasn't part of the actual discussion. So it was mentioned as one of the things the JO was working on. So it hasn't gone any further, I don't think. We'll chase it up though, okay?
Thank you for that, Peter. Just wanted to point out in the period of time since we've had these minutes provided and today it's been an announcement of a federal inquiry into the financial stability of local councils, and looking forward to, as has been highlighted in these minutes, if that's something that the Central West New South Wales JO is looking forward to participate, that's something they want to provide feedback on, and it's great that there's a forum to do so, and hopefully it results in more appropriate funding being provided to councils. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor
I
Dowling?
was just going to say on the figures that were interesting that 93% of the JO's region are worried about healthcare access to GPs and the like. So perhaps the ball might not stay in their court. Perhaps we could be proactive and contact them and push it along, saying they have the funding, and let them know we want to be part of it.
We'll follow that up, definitely. Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, on page 60, submissions under development, second dot point, the inquiry into the assets, premises and funding of the New South Wales Rural Fire Service. Is that, have we been asked, has the JO been asked to provide that, or is something they're developing on their own accord?
Page, sorry,
Page 60, submissions under development, the second dot point.
oh, yeah. They've been asked to provide submissions to that inquiry. No, that's a different inquiry. This is the Rural Fire Service. Is that, and then the draft terms of reference to the IPART is a second inquiry that's now not on, but the second dot point is still on, and the JO is actually providing a submission to that New South Wales Rural Fire Service inquiry into premises and funding.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a point of interest, the last liaison committee meeting, both the Cowra and Blaney Shire representatives were castigated by the Cabon member for listing our assets on our balance sheet, because Cabon and Orange refused to do so, and they think we all should do that. And they did say they were happy that the Local Government Association of New South Wales had passed a motion unanimously for the state government, I think, to take over the funding of the RFS. That was passed unanimously, as I said, but the Cabon representative said we'll probably lay on the table and gather dust and nothing will be done. So be interesting what does come out of this, but it's just a bit of criticism amongst each other and how the practice is done and how we follow the rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any further questions? Then I won't need a right reply. I think we've gone through most of these in detail, and there isn't anything that we can't keep an eye on for the next, every time we have a JO meeting, these come up. So most of these things come up every time. So we'll just keep an eye on those things, and we'll come back to you with the Rural Doctors Network. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. And now we're up to donation for Anglo Fireworks, page 76. Now a mover, Councillor Smith, Councillor Watt, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have discussed this previously, and it has been the practice of council for some time to provide a 50% donation in situations like this to a number of organisations. And I think that is reasonable, although I also think that when we start working, as we will be very shortly, on our budget for the next financial year. The fact that these charges don't represent the cost to council is something that we could discuss. It's an event that has a lot of work go into it, that attracts up to 5,000 people, and I think it's appropriate that we assist in this way.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Watt? Any further comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Investments 4.2, same page, 676. Do I have a mover? Councillor West, Councillor Smith. Councillor West, would you like to comment? No comment. Councillor Smith? I'll put the motion. Anyone else want to comment? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Section 355 Committee draft minutes for the Cowra Regional Art Gallery. Councillor Delbo. Councillor Watt, would you like to comment, Councillor Delbo? No comment. Councillor Wright?
Yeah, no, basically the minutes told us, filled us in on the operation of the art gallery, what they've done over the period of time, some 2 to 3 months, and they maintain a rather busy schedule. Additionally, they did hold a 4-day exhibition over the weekend from the Italian POW camp, and I thank them and their helpers who put that together. I think it was very interesting and relevant with the festival being held, and I just ask people to use more water so we can shift more money into looking after the art gallery. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I also agree with that. It was an excellent exhibition and well thought out, and it was very relevant for the Italian visitors that we had. Thank you. Any further comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Committee minutes, Traffic Committee on page 76. I have a mover, Councillor Paul Smith, seconder, Councillor Downing. Would you like to comment, Councillor Smith?
No, thank you, Mayor Fagan.
Councillor Downing? Any further comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Section 355 Committee minutes for the Sale Yards Committee. Councillor West. Anyone else? I need a seconder for the Sale Yards. Councillor Smith. Thank you. Councillor West, would you like to comment?
And not really, Madam Mayor, this was discussed at committee, as you said, and I think the salient point then is one we're still working our way through is in terms of the electronic tagging of sheep and the setup will be at the sale yard. So still working our way through that and the funding arrangements. So we'll keep council abreast of what's developing as it develops.
Thank you, Councillor West. Any further comments? Councillor Wright.
Yeah, the second concern is the EID rollout, and as Councillor West said, that we're looking to secure more grant funding to be able to implement all the necessary technology across the whole sale yard. The first concern or item of concern is maintaining stock numbers at sale yard, and I realise our agents are doing the best they can, and but I'd also ask producers to seriously look at where they sell the lambs if they're going to go through the auction system, and I think they'll find that the Cowra yards give as good a result as any, and the Wednesday sale is proven beneficial as we pick up extra buyers that are on the circuit from Dubbo to Carcourt, then to Cowra before they go to Wagga, and Forbes also before us. As far as the ID was, I sat in on a meeting that I think it was Integrity Systems NLIS run last week to do basically for sale yard operators and agents to hear what they do in Ballarat. They've been using it for some 5 years, and the system's working well down there. They're all getting used to it. The technology that the computer technology that we are planning to buy and operate under is gels in very well with the NLIS system, and it can be used from the agent's office, connects to the sale yard's office and so forth to get stock onto the system prior to the mad rush an hour before the sale. And I think it's all positive with the rollout, and whatever we do, sale yards will have to comply, but when it is rolled out, producers will have to comply on their farm too. So it's not something they're going to escape by not using the sale yards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor West, or any other comments? Councillor West, would you like to reply?
Just very, very briefly I'm sure my colleagues understand that the electronic tagging is a national scheme, not a state scheme, and other states have already implemented or started to implement. So New South Wales have been a little bit slow. There has been some comments in the media from New South Wales farmers and other bodies that are trying to, I'm not sure, slow it down or to avoid it. It is inevitable. We will have to comply, and we needed a sale yard operator to comply appropriately and within the proper time frame. The time frame is a bit too tight, and the funding is a bit too short. So they're the two issues we need to be trying to address rather than avoid the whole scenario, because the councillor right says it is something we just all have to do. And some of the concerns have been raised by some of the producers, not just in this area, but other areas where the cost is going to come back to them, and in cheap prices and so forth, they're concerned of just another little cost on top of what they're doing. So there are issues out there, but the main one we've got to deal with is getting funding, if we can, and trying to meet the timeline or get a delay in the timeline.
Thank you, Councillor West. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now, 4.6, development application number 137/2021, Campbell Street. Councillor Watt leaving the room, Councillor Smith moving that, and Councillor Smith is seconding it. So thank you. Councillor Smith, Judy Smith.
Thank you. This is something that we have discussed thoroughly a number of times. Westcast has been making concrete products on site for some time. This recommendation regulates it, I believe, stringently and appropriately. It incorporates almost 50 regulations from council, and including some from Essential Energy, from Transport for New South Wales, and of course the EPA, all of which are designed to ensure appropriate use of the facilities so that the impact on the environment, and I include in that those people who are living nearby, is eliminated or minimised. There were 3 objections, and I do thank council staff for an enormous number of work that has been done over quite a long period of time regarding these, which includes answering, I believe, appropriately those objections. So what remains now, I believe, is for Westcast to make sure they comply with all the regulations, which include hours of operation, hours of movements of trucks, and so on. I think it's also appropriate that those who live nearby monitor any adverse effects they believe that may be being had upon them or the surrounding environment, and should that be the case, that they notify council, and that council takes the appropriate action, and of course is also aware itself of these regulations and compliance. If that, as I believe it will, is all done, then I think that this will turn out to be a very good operation which we should support.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Fagan. I, along with other councillors and staff, attended a site inspection last week. It was very, very obvious the amount of effort that the people out there have gone to try and appease the neighbours as much as they possibly can. Even to the extent there's some things that we haven't asked them for, like their roller doors, they close them as much as they possibly can to keep the noise inside rather than outside. So they are trying, and I agree with Councillor Judy Smith that the neighbours surely will, if they see something that we haven't, that they will let us know.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any further comment? Right of reply? That's the case. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Can we get Councillor Watt back, please? Now we're up to page 89. Up to page 89, the recommendation from the General Manager for the Acting General Manager while he is on leave. So I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Delbo, Councillor Downing, thank you. Would like to speak, Councillor Downing, Elbow, Councillor Downing. If that's the case, anyone else? I'll put them, yes, Councillor West.
Happy to support, of course, but there is a period after this when the General Manager's not around either. Are we going to deal with that at a later date, or is there a provision for?
Councillor West is talking about the delegation to Japan, so I'll be attending that as a general manager. Still be not on leave,
fine,
so
okay.
yeah,
Sorry.
so
Yes, okay.
I'll certainly convey that already to staff that I'll be available.
Stand
Time
corrected, thank you.
zones are
Thank
pretty similar, so
Thank you. Yeah.
email, phone.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Section 355 committee draft minutes of the CDBB committee, and there's 2 minutes. So I have a mover, Sharon. Councillor Delbo.
Move an amendment, please.
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Yes, a correction. Thank you so
Correction.
much. In the 29th of February and the 6th of March meeting minutes, we have listed Ian Docker as present. That was not the case. And we also, at the 19th of March meeting, which we do not have those meeting minutes in front of us tonight, but at that meeting we discussed that Ashley Field is to be added to a point in the general business of the meeting minutes of the 6th of March. And I'll just open up the meeting minutes to clarify the point. Oops,
Could I just flag, Madam Chair, that you're not confirming the minutes tonight. That's for the CBD committee to do that.
Yep.
So you're noting them. If you want the recommendation to include amendments to the recommendation to note the minutes, councils has the liberty to do that, but you're not confirming the accuracy of the minutes here tonight. That's for the CBD committee to do that at their subsequent meetings.
These are draft minutes, and you're
Happy to second the motion to note them, and also I think that members that we also note those changes, inaccuracies in the minutes.
okay. Happy with that? Yes. Anything else, Councillor Delbo? That's it. Councillor West. Anyone else have any comments about those minutes? If that's the case, I'll put the minutes.
Just a question, if I could, please. I think the first bit you said was written down, there's people there that weren't there or something. But then, if that was on the 29th of February, the 6th of March meeting should have picked that up or not?
If you don't mind, it didn't because we delayed addressing the minutes because it was a short meeting, but we had
All
the
right.
presenters from Village Well.
Yeah.
So both of these are draft
Mm.
minutes that haven't been adopted by the committee.
No, I support the way it's going, because I wasn't at the meeting and I don't know who was there, so it needs to come back from the committee, the changes, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
I'd like to congratulate the CBD committee on firstly their choice of contractor to work on a CBD plan, and secondly on the staging of the Can Do Cowra forum or workshop, which was attended by a good cross-section of community people, and which I thought was very interesting, very positive, and all the comments that I've had, and there were many comments and many questions from people who couldn't be at that forum. All the comments were very positive. So I look forward to seeing that positive attitude carry on and give us some wins on the CBD committee.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Right, yes, you may comment, Councillor Wright.
I too congratulate the committee on what they've done. It wasn't an easy task you've taken on, and no doubt we haven't found or the committee probably hasn't found the magic bullet yet, but they have got things to work with, and I support the committee going forward to try and rectify that. I was concerned at the meeting that one leading community member leader suggested that after that meeting, the current committee be disbanded and they'd form a new one because they wanted to be on it, even though they didn't nominate previously. And I don't think that's the way to go. The committee that's formed have started something, and I think they should be given time to try and implement what they want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor West.
I want to pick up something, Madam Mayor, that the meeting on the Sadako Services Club, my understanding is that people went as individuals, not representing organisations. I think that point has been made very clear and needs to be made very clear. And I think also that particular day, people were encouraged to put forward their points of view and their ideas. If their points of view and ideas don't concur with what we think, then so be it, because they're entitled, and we encourage people to actually be open, honest, and tell us what they thought. And I don't believe anybody was. There were all sorts of comments and suggestions made about council and a lot of other areas too. So I think we need to accept that people made open, honest comments, which may or may not be taken out of context and not being referred to in the way they may well have been meant. So I think that we need to be cautious in expressing any concern about any individual or group who was at that meeting or who subsequently have expressed an interest in the CBD and what's happening.
Thank you, Councillor West. Any further comments? Yes, right, reply, Councillor Delbo. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to concur with my colleagues that it was a fantastic event on the Saturday at Club Cowra, and particularly thank everyone who made the time to come and bring fresh ideas. I know often it's hard to kind of spend your afternoon on a Saturday thinking about big picture ideas, but we had about 120 people of the community come and do it, and as Councillor Judy Smith noted, many more who wanted to be there, and there's still conversations today going on, and I'm constantly asked how it went and what's happening next, and I think that's a really exciting engagement for council to have. I'd particularly like to highlight and thank the business members and community members who put their hand up to be part of the committee and who have done a huge amount of work over the last couple of months in encouraging fellow members of the community and fellow businesses to step up and take part in these meetings. And I think without them, there wouldn't have been the success that there was. So congratulations to all of you for the work that you've done so far, and there's much more to go.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Councillor, any further comments? Councillor Delbo has right to reply.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just want to add that thank you for the community for participating in the day and to turn up and to provide comment. There were many things written on lots of post-it notes, and the CBD committee have since received that report back. I'd also like to thank our committee, as mentioned here tonight, the CBD committee. They're a very passionate committee, and they all know that they have a role as ambassadors to carry it forward. There are quite a few steps to go yet. As Councillor Watt has said, there's quite a bit of resourcing still to go into this, and we anticipate a draft activation strategy to be presented to Council in May this year for it to go out on public consultation. One of the things that I have noticed instantly from the workshop is the change of tone and expression on social media in regards to the big takeaway was people in the audience felt that we are probably a little too hard on ourselves here at Cowra and far too negative with our comments. And as a result, there has been a lot of positivity being generated online, and even some of the groups that people post to have changed their way that they're going to operate going forward. And I think that's an enormous win. And I really look forward to seeing the effect of positivity across our community going forward, and hopefully we'll be able to pick up people who are wanting to go into business and are positive that their business will begin strongly and hopefully continue in that space.
Thank you, Councillor Delvaux. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? As against? Carried. Thank you. Now we're on to recycling service on page 99. I'll have somebody move the recycling service.
I'd like to move an amendment, please.
We'll put your amendment first. Can you see what it is? And
Yep.
Councillor West might. Yep.
My amendment is as follows, that council, keeping in that council acknowledge the failure to process curbside recycling collected between January 2018 to May 2019. Keeping in that council commit to taking appropriate measures to ensure curbside recycling processing is maximised in the future. And I'd like to add 4 new amendments, please. The first one being an options paper to be prepared and presented back to council with the following scenarios, in brackets including the long-term financial plan impacts on council's financial position. The first scenario is the status quo. Second scenario is a full refund, and a third scenario is no recycling charge for the upcoming financial year. And another new amendment is council's ARIC Audit Risk Improvement Committee identify all areas of future risk management, including the operations of the MRF, and update council's risk register. A new amendment, the updated risk register to be presented to council for adoption. And the next one and the final one is council's executive staff to be allocated a standing section in the ARIC meeting agenda to report on the activities of each directorship at each meeting. Thank you.
Councillor West.
I'm happy to move the original motion, Madam Mayor, but in light of that, then I would think that, no, I'll move the original motion, then I'll speak if need be. Wait a second. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. There is no doubt this is a complex issue, and it's one that we as a council have clearly put our hand up and said we got it wrong. We're acknowledging that error that was made. While the decision might have been right in the overall context of maximising recycling, the lack of transparency is really something that has caused this issue, and it's the core of the decision that we're dealing with tonight, and we need to put our hand up and say, yes, we got it wrong. Also need to acknowledge that council sought legal advice, indicates there's not really been a breach of law, but arguably has been a breach of trust, which we acknowledge and respect and understand. But there's not a simple solution. Costs have been incurred, both in collection and disposal of landfill, and is incurring an ongoing cost. We can't put material into landfill free of charge. There is a cost. Any reimbursement, notwithstanding changes in ownerships and properties, and inevitably be a cost to consumers, seems illogical, because there is a cost. We have to find the money, and it would very much depend on giving with one hand to some extent and taking with the other hand. So I think that we need to accept that we got it wrong. We also need to understand, I think, that the history of the current MRF goes back to the land being purchased in around about 1988, and that the MRF, its current form was established in 1994, around that period, mid-90s. Recycling started in about 1998. So council has a long and proud record in recycling. This council has been very diligent in promoting recycling and ensuring that we as a community recycle and recycle appropriately, and understand there is enormous value, not just in the environment, but in recycling and hopefully an income stream, but also reducing landfill. And this council, to its credit, has really stood strong on that particular issue. So I would be saying that that aberration between that period of January 2018 and May 2019, recycling didn't stop. Council did take on more than we could handle, and it became a fact that there was just too much product that we had to reduce. Bearing in mind that the container deposit scheme cannot be put in landfill. Council reacted, I think, fairly quickly in terms of, by August 2018, setting up a new facility and improving the facility out there, so that by January 2019 it was completed, and by May 2019 it was in operation. The failure to tell the community, the failure to advise the community, is the one that we are acknowledging. We have a lot of issues going forward which we need, and some of what Councillor Bilbo has said is something we do need to address, but it's not relevant, I don't think, to this particular recommendation. And I'm a little bit disappointed when we get what I'd call veiled threats coming in from the public forum about the Ombudsman or ABC and wanting to blame individual councillors or general manager at a particular point in time. The mistake has been acknowledged, but there's also a concern that we can have a jaundiced view, if you like, of council's budget, but we know it's tight, and we know that we're trying to provide a lot of assets, a lot of community availability of things like the art gallery, library, the swimming pool, etc., and they come at a cost. So how we manage the total big packet of the budget is an enormous task that we have to do. And I don't see that whilst refunding is something that is probably appealing in the short term, I don't think that we should lose sight of the fact that putting material into the landfill is at a cost. Not doesn't come cheap. And secondly, that there is a difficulty in providing accurate data to find those people who would be infected, to make sure they're all still around. So I think that is something that we acknowledge, and we publicly come out and we publicly say that. And I have no doubt that, and strongly say that, and I have no doubt that some of the comments that Councillor Delbo wants to move the amendment, I have no doubt that some of those suggestions will drop out of this conversation going forward. So with that, I'll leave it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor West. Councillor Smith.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Fagan. The point I'd like to make is that should we give a refund, sooner or later, it comes out of our coffers. It comes out of our future budget. As we run a tight budget, as Councillor West has just mentioned, the people that pay for this refund are not the people who necessarily missed out on their collection. Because they may be gone, and it'll be the future ratepayers that have to pay for this decision if we make it tonight. And I'd also like to point out that the CDS scheme, Mr. Vickery was exactly right in what he said, was a profit-making concern. I've put that on the table. And that profit goes to subsidise council's operations. That's the bottom line. That's why we did it. We didn't do it for fun. We do it to make a profit, which subsidises other things that we do. And had we not done it, the profit wouldn't have been there. We'd have lost the contract to somebody else, and the rates to maintain our facilities as we do would have had to be a ratepayer. So no matter which way you look at it, it would have cost ratepayers money. So I'm quite happy with the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Downing.
Can I speak to the amendment?
We
There's
haven't
no
got an
amendment.
amendment.
Well, it hasn't gone. We haven't voted on
No, no.
anything, so.
It's still there.
I'd like to move the amendment, please.
And
I'll second it and I'll speak to it if you like.
that's fine, thank
I'd
you.
like, I'd like to hear the amendment again because it's pretty involved.
Yeah.
Okay, can you read that out again, Councillor
Sure.
Delbo, if you wouldn't mind? Thank you.
Yep. So keeping point 1 and point 2 in our meeting minutes, and adding the following, please. The first one is an options paper to be prepared and presented back to council with the following scenarios, in brackets, including the long-term financial plan impacts on council's financial position of scenario 1, status quo, scenario 2, full refund, and scenario 3, no recycling charge for the upcoming financial year. A new point, council's ARIC identifies all areas of future risk management, including the operations of the MRF, and update council's risk register. Another new point, the updated risk register to be presented to council for adoption. And the final point, council's executive staff to be allocated a standing section in the ARIC meeting agenda to report on the activities of each directorship at each meeting.
Councillor Downing? Oh, so do you want to speak to that, Councillor Delbo?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Yeah. Firstly, I would like to apologise to my councillors that I haven't put this amendment in front of them before this meeting. I have my world's a little crazy at the moment. I work full time, and I'm obviously full-time mum also, and I just hadn't had time to put my thoughts to paper until the last 24 hours. So my sincere apologies to you all. I would have liked to have handed it to you. I want to start with thanking Scott Vickering for coming in this evening and discussing his points with us. First of all, I'm just going to start with, I believe we have two main issues here that I'd like to address. And the first one is a break in our system. And the next one is obviously community money not being used for its intended purpose. And as a result, a lack of transparency with our community. The first one with a break in our systems. In 2016, the New South Wales Local Government Act required councils to establish the Audit Risk Improvement Committees by March 2021. And their role at that time was to mandate a risk management framework, an internal audit function for council, and to set minimum standards of compliance. At the end of 2019, we had amendments, and a circular to council was sent to each council of New South Wales on the 10th of September 2019, where they have reviewed the framework. And with that, they have decided to develop an agreed internal audit works program, how to perform and report internal audits, undertake ongoing monitoring and reporting, and establishing a quality assurance and improvement program. From that, we have held ARIC meetings, obviously each year. In March, 21st of March in 2019, some of the agenda items of that meeting was fuel and credit card risk profiles and reviewing the committee charter. And then the next meeting in July 2020, we had an action list where we looked at reviewing water risks, payroll processing timeframes. We also looked at statements of business ethics, EDMS business rules, and asbestos management plan. This on the 24th of August in 2020 council meeting is where the minutes of the ARIC meeting were presented, but also was the CSP. And in that CSP, G2.4, develop a council-wide enterprise risk management plan and develop and implement supporting processes to ensure ongoing integration of risk management principles into council's operations was listed. And our action was to maintain and update a strategic risk register. Our performance measure was to present that annually to ARIC, and that was achieved at the 6-month review on the 31st of December in 2019. The other part of that report of the CSP that I feel is relevant to this discussion tonight is N3, at the time, so we're going back to August 2020, and that is to promote practice to encourage Cowra to be environmentally responsible community. And the action for that was to monitor the rollout of the container deposit schemes, and the performance measure was to negotiate a contract with Cleanway for Cowra material recycling facilities to be a regional centre for processing of CDS items. It's reported in the ARIC meeting minutes that by the 31st of December 2019, the contract negotiations were in progress, and then at the 30th of June in 2020, operations continue to sort the CDS materials. At that point, I would have assumed that we would have reviewed the operation of the CDS out at council and identified that there was more recycled product coming in than what we could handle. I have been unable to find any further information to support that, and so I have left it at that. We've had meetings since that, but I won't go into that here tonight. I believe that the points that I've put forward in the amendment will help with the break in our system that I personally feel that has occurred by strengthening our ARIC committee and the objectives of the ARIC committee, where they are, my understanding is that they are there to look at all risk for council, whether it's a financial risk, environmental, reputational, and so on. And I'm hoping that by identifying that we need to make sure we have all our assets included in the risk management, in the risk register, that this issue will not happen again, whether it's at the MRF or another facility or asset that council owns. The second part of the issue that I feel that we have, it does not sit well with me, is that we have taken community money for a service that we did not provide. We provided that we picked up the garbage, we took it out to the rubbish, out to the MRF, and it's gone into landfill. Most people who use a yellow lidded recycling bin believe that is going to be recycled, and I spoke to people on the weekend regarding this, and these are avid recyclers. I didn't know that at the time when I first approached them. They're avid recyclers, and they are disappointed to learn that their recycling wasn't treated correctly. And that's where I feel we have reputational damage, just as the Red Cycle program did with its soft plastics that went bust back in November 2022. At the end of the day, you know, in politics, they say, does it pass the pub test? I believe this does not pass the pub test, and that we need, as a council, to look further at this issue and to come back to council with more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Delbell. Councillor Downing?
So initially when I read this recommendation, I was going to vote against it. So I was never happy with it as it stood at the time. So this amendment is actually a welcome change and gels a little bit more with what I thought when I read. So it would be easy for me to just sit here and blame the council who preceded me. This didn't happen on my watch, but as I've stated in this chamber before, the standard that you walk past is the standard that you set. And I think that we should be setting a better standard for our community, and we really need to actually recoup the trust that we have broken with them. It appears that there's been a total breakdown of all policies and procedures at every level. And I worry about a workplace culture where staff feel comfortable sharing details with our community about these things. but they don't feel the need or feel supported enough to bring it to the attention of senior staff, directors, or the general manager. I sincerely believe that Councillor Delbo's amendments will further help to ensure that this is not the case going forward, and I think that we should be part of the solution in watching how that happens. More information is needed before we can make a decision of this magnitude, and I fully support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Downing. Now I need somebody to speak for the amendment or against the amendment. I might get Councillor Smith, Judy Smith.
I'm going to speak against the amendment and for the original motion. I thank Councillor Delbo and Councillor Downing for, particularly Councillor Delbo's immense amount of work and concern around this. It's a concern I'm sure that we all share. The only reason that I will be voting against it at the moment is that, having only just heard a very complex list of added dot points, I'm not able at this point in time to assess those adequately enough to vote for them. I will flag my intention, depending on the outcome of the vote on the addendum to amendment, to, if necessary, move an amendment that we add a third dot point, that we continue further discussion about what can be done to ensure that like incidents or like scenarios don't happen again. But with the best will in the world and an acknowledgement that there were a number of failures of communication, I just don't feel that I have enough information to vote for that at the moment. While I'm on my metaphorical feet, I'd like just to add one thing in support of the motion, the original motion, and that is that council does have a contract with the community regarding this particular matter, but that contract is a two-way contract. Council was derelict and failed to fulfil that contract for what I believe to be good and sufficient reasons in the short term. But the community also needs to fulfil a contract of ensuring that, as best they can, their recycling is not contaminated. That is not always the case for a number of reasons. One being that recycling is a very complex matter, differing from LGA to LGA and changing within the Cowra LGA as we add abilities to process different materials. However, some people, I do believe, don't really look at the issue enough. And one of the reasons that the decision was made to process the CDS material, apart from, as Councillor West has said in his very comprehensive original statement, apart from that we were contractually obliged to not send that to landfill, one of the reasons is that it was clean recycling, whereas the contamination rate in general in our yellow bins is quite high. Sometimes that can be managed along the line. Sometimes the contamination is so bad that it's not safe for the people processing it, or it's not possible for that particular batch to be processed, and that is a great shame. So we at council have work to do, and yes, I believe we have a public apology that we need to make, but we also have work to do in educating our community as best we can and in a variety of ways about what can and can't be recycled and the importance of that recycling. And I believe those are all important tasks for us to do, and that our community, if and when we regain their trust in our recycling processes, needs to be a valued part of.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Anybody speaking for the motion amendment? Anyone speaking? Yeah, Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to all my fellow councillors for providing some deep thought about this item tonight. Through the conversation today, I feel like we've highlighted a number of issues and concerns that need further consideration by councillors, and that's why I'm supporting the amendment tonight. I was unaware before being raised by Mr. Vickery that in his claim this case is currently being dealt with by the Ombudsman and the Office of Local Government, and would like further information on that before we decide where to go forward. I also feel that through points raised by my fellow councillors today, that I have questions about when the issue of this operational decision was raised with the council at the time, and appears differently from my previous understanding that we were made aware of this when Scott Vickery presented to us last year. I believe these questions are essential for us to be able to decide where we go forward and to determine what happened at the time and how to avoid that risk going forward. As Councillor Delbo pointed out, we have in our community strategic plan an aim to encourage people to be environmental leaders in our community, and these actions clearly were not us taking steps as an environmental leader. We can say today that we are a council committed to recycling, but for 15 months we did not make that decision to appropriately recycle yellow bins. We consciously made a decision to bring on the business of the container deposit scheme, and from what's been said by my colleagues tonight, we took some months to make the correct decisions to develop the appropriate processing and then implement the appropriate processing. As has been said, we had a contract with our community, and we had an agreement with the company around the processing of Cleanaway. And I believe if we were not able to make appropriate operational decisions at the time to deal with the container deposit scheme and set up appropriate measures, be that staffing or be that facilities, then that is a reflection on our capacity to make decisions. And the questions that Councillor Delbo has raised tonight of needing to review our risk register in this space is an important one. We have been making a number of good decisions over the last year or so about expanding the facilities at the MRF and making sure that we are set up for an expanded influx of container deposit scheme materials, and still being able to appropriately process yellow bin materials and expand our problem waste processing. However, I believe that the council should consider the broader picture as well and look back at what we've done. I would acknowledge and say that I'm sympathetic to fellow councillors about our financial constraints going forward. We are being placed with a number of substantial responsibilities by state and federal government to make significant changes in the way that we process waste. And these undoubtedly will come at a huge expense to council. As noted earlier, there's currently a review into the financial sustainability of councils, and I think we would all say that's a question we raise every day as councillors as we look through our work. Nevertheless, I think it's worth reviewing the long-term costs and the long-term impacts of providing some compensation to our community in order to consider this, and most importantly, undertaking some appropriate risk management and risk assessment so that we can fully understand what occurred and fully understand how to avoid this going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Against amendment, Councillor West.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I could make a significant number of comments, but I would suggest that a way forward with this, given there is some concern, would be to perhaps accept dot point 1 and then the second dot point, which would simply be to defer the matter for further discussion and information and consideration, which would cover all the issues that are being raised. I cannot support the amendment. We talk about ARIC as if ARIC and the comments about ARIC are totally irrelevant and not any part of this. We've all acknowledged that there was a problem, and we need to acknowledge that and put a hand up and say, yes, we got it wrong. And we unanimously agree with that. But I think to move an amendment in the way we're moving it, without people having had a chance to look at it, read it and understand it, is, I won't use the word disappointing, but it's not the way we should work in best practice in the council. And we're talking about how council operates and the standard. Well, I would think that an appropriate standard is that we get to look at the amendments and what's being asked for and have a discussion about all those issues that are being put on the table verbally, which we, as I said, we haven't had a chance to look at it. I'm not sure if anybody's in mind to go down that path, but I think the sensible thing to discuss this, work out what information we think we need, and that I think tonight we should acknowledge there was a failure, should acknowledge that it's regrettable. Council is disappointed, we're owning it, but if we think we should be looking at more measures, then we should defer it to look at those measures as a second dot point to the original motion. That would be my strong suggestion and recommendation. Otherwise, we're getting, I think, a little bit lost in some theory and some rhetoric, which is in some respects not relevant to the matter, and some of it which is trying to navel gaze what may have happened in the past and try to sheet blame in some form or other at people or individuals or the council, and to, I think, almost create some reputational damage to council beyond this particular matter. And that would be frankly disappointing if that's the case, because this council has a proud record over many decades of being open, transparent and being well managed. And I think one mistake, one error should not be allowed to just completely blindfold a broader conversation and allow that mistake not to be just acknowledged. But I don't have any problem with further information being sought. But I think that the amendment as it's being put, I can't support it, and I think it's, to be quite frank, unreasonable to think we could support it. So there is a way forward. If the amendment gets put and gets carried, I'll move an amendment that dot point 1 stands and that dot point 2 becomes as I've indicated.
Thank you, Councillor West.
What was
Councillor
the last comment about dot point 2 he made, please?
Councillor West.
Dot point 2 would be that the matter be deferred for further consideration and discussions. And that would allow Councillor Delbo and others who have specific issues to raise, put them on the table, and we can have a look at them as a council in an appropriate time and work out what we as a council might think we should do and how we should react, and also give senior staff a chance to respond to those comments as well. Because it's impossible for me in my little old farmer's head to get my head around the three components of the amendment on the fly. It's not good governance.
Thank you, Councillor West. Councillor Wright, did you want to comment? Did you want to speak against the amendment, for the amendment?
I'll speak for the motion and against the amendment at this stage. Firstly, I thank Scott Vickery for coming and letting us know publicly what he thinks. Would have been good to see him stay for the meeting to hear the debate, but I'm pretty sure he'll be watching the video when it goes on air, possibly tomorrow. I enjoy it when people come in here and do tell us what they think. A lot of people don't like criticism, but if we don't get criticism, we don't look at our navel and see what we need to do better. And as far as the matters of the Ombudsman and the Office of Local Government and ABC News, Cowra is probably one of many councils that are before those bodies for various reasons. And I have no trouble with those bodies looking at what we're doing, because I feel confident that we can put a case forward of what happened and what we're going to do in the future. He was critical that we haven't made a public announcement. Well, up until now, council hasn't made a decision to acknowledge the failure. And once this is acknowledged, we can make a public announcement. We've been looking at what the implications would have been and up to now. And when this passed, we have a resolution that will go into the public domain, and people will be asking us for what happened, and that's our chance to make the apology. He mentioned no increase in rates for 24, 25. The conversation I had with him this afternoon, it wasn't just on recycling rates. He wanted it on all rates levied by council in that period. And he suggested it'd be about $80 per ratepayer, and it'd be less than the 750,000, and it would be a start. I indicated to him that the budget still mightn't be able to handle that. The reason why I'm speaking, I'm not favouring the amendment, is that it involves, when it got into the Arick pit, that's getting into another area of debate that we have to do, and they're looking at things all the time. And I would have thought after something this has come to council, it would go to Arick in a manner to be discussed. I support the first part of the amendment about the options and long-term financial plan, status quo, what the refund's going to cost, no recycling charge for 24, 25, but I think it should also would come out with a long-term financial plan as what's the capacity out there, what's our room for increased recycling that we can manage, and where does it go? Because recycling is very nice, but it's not a very saleable product to cover costs. And often the cost is any profit is lost in the transportation from our facility to the buyer to the next facility. And if we had been able to package and sort all that went to the tip that was supposedly directed to the landfill, we have been given some figures. I don't know if that still stands, whether it was happening every day or just the days it was busy. We could add a bigger debt on our books by stuff there that we weren't able to sell. And as Councillor Aaron Watt said, that state and federal government have got a lot of regulations on us about this and things we got to meet by 2030 and so forth. I think they need to realise what they're entering into. It's not just a feel-good outcome. There's a cost to do it, and there's a cost to sell it at times, and it's not all for profit that could be lost. So that would be covered in the long-term plan, and I suggest to the mover of the amendment, the seconder, that a supplementary, I think, I wouldn't defer number 2 because we want to start doing that now, and I'd move a supplementary motion if this does go through, listing those things that you want to do that we can look at from now, but I wouldn't go into the Arick situation just yet. Arick committee would know what they've got to do, and we've been told that the risk management schedule is being updated all the time, and I would have presumed that there would have been something put into there since then, like this happened on my watch, but I haven't been on the risk management committee since then, and they do have 3 meetings a year, and I think that's the reason why I'm supporting the motion as it is, that we can start the process of the apology and explanation, and we start the process of ensuring that what we need to do out there to maintain a recycling facility doing what we have to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further comments about the amendment? Councillor Paul Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Fagan. I think there's been some comments tonight about recycling, and I just want to have my thoughts on the fact that every reasonable person would encourage recycling and want their recycling recycled. No doubt about that. The fact that 40% of it's contaminated tells me there's a lot of unreasonable people in the town that don't really care that much. I think the pub test would tell me, I might go to a different pub to some of the other councillors, but I think that would pass the pub test. I think most people would say, oh, that's a shame. I don't think they would be upset about it. They would prefer that it gets recycled because that's what it's about. As I said, 40% of it's contaminated anyway, but I think most people would be disappointed rather than disgusted. That's just my thought.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any further comments? And then I'll put the amendment.
Question, is the mover and seconder of the motion made an amendment that
No, not yet.
that point two would be deferred?
We're dealing with the amendment first, and once we deal with the amendment,
Foreshadowing something, councillor Wright.
there's a foreshadow amendment to the original motion, but I'll put the amendment. All those in favour, say aye, or raise your hands probably. Okay, all those against, it's lost. And now go back to your motion, Councillor West.
Respect the original motion. If the seconder is happy, Madam Mayor, and there's some concern in the chamber, obviously, that we might add a third dot point that the council further consider this in the forming of the delivery operational plan and the budget for the next financial year. Well, third dot point is simply that we continue as a council to discuss the matter. When we leave 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2, sorry, 1 and 2 stay, and dot point 3 would be that to allow some sort of feedback for those in the chamber who have a concern, is that we express that we word it that we will further discuss the matter, informing the financial plan and operational plan for 2024-2025. In other words, the conversation would form part of the delivery operational plan. That's what I'm suggesting. If the mover's not happy, if the second is not happy, I'll stick with 1 and 2.
My question is, as I understand the recommendation, that is that we do not give a refund to everybody. It's like, if we've got 3, does that say that we don't make that decision tonight and we continue on into the next year's budget?
Not necessarily. But we consider the operation and what we're doing, as well as recycling, as well as the financial implications. Because the financial implications will drop out of the budget.
That's slightly different to what you actually said. It's actually looking at the financial implications in the long-term financial plan.
Take the word financial out and the implications.
Just looking at the implications in the long-term financial plan for
and delivery and operational plan for 2024-2025.
Okay, can
Well,
we?
I'll withdraw it.
Can I actually just suggest that we defer this? Can we defer this matter? We've been going since 2019. I don't think anyone's going to be.
Consider, like, I want to know the consequences of what.
But if the second is not happy, I'm happy to stick with 1 and 2 as they stand on the agenda, except the seconder's comments. That's fine. Yep. No, I get that. Yep. No. Happy to second.
So the motion stands as it is.
1 and 2. Yep.
This motion stands.
I wish to move an amendment, please.
Yeah, Councillor Watt. Right.
The amendment is that we defer recommendations 1 and 2 to come back to council at the earliest convenience. And the second part, or the third will be and the second part of the amendment is that we look at the the long-term financial plan for the recycling centre, and what needs to be done to maintain adequate room out there for all recycling material that's received.
Do you have a seconder, councillor Wright? Is there a seconder for that? Is there a seconder?
If Michael could read it out again, I'm considering seconding it, if that's all right, just so we can clarify the wording of what I'd be seconding.
So Councillor Wright's spoken to deferring items 1 and 2 and come back to council at the earliest possible convenience and look at the long-term financial plan for the MRF and recycling facility to capture the increased capacity. Does that capture?
To ensure that we have the capacity to
Ensure capacity.
that comes up. I think
So you're going to second the amendment, councillor Watt? So, okay, you haven't got a seconder, elapses. If you're not going to second it, that's fine. We'll go back to the original motion and councillor Smith comes to the rescue.
No, not necessarily, because I've got the start of a sentence and not the end of it. I'd like to move an amendment that we add a dot point 3 to what is before us. And I'll speak to why I think we should add a dot point 3 if I get a seconder, but I just can't finish my sentence. That council conduct further wide-ranging discussions in the lead up to the 2024-25 budget as to, and that's where I stop, because I don't want to indicate that we are going to make reparations or necessarily financial inputs regarding what has happened. But I do think that there are a number of options.
as to options going forward.
All right. Well, if people are happy with that as to options to resolve this matter going forward. I think we've got in dot point 2 already appropriate measures to ensure processing is maximised.
Okay, councillor Watts, going to second that? Or would you like to put that in speak? That's okay. Councillor Smith, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, the only reason that I'm moving a third dot point is I think that it's important, given that this is, I believe, well and truly in the public arena, that there will be people watching the video of this meeting and that there will be commentary, that I think it's important that we acknowledge what has happened and that we, at the same time, commit that whatever the result of any discussions, that we take appropriate measures to ensure that we maximise curbside recycling. So I think that those are two important things that the public needs to know now. And I'm happy to spend some time discussing Councillor Delbo's ideas and other ideas and getting information about them so that we can see the best way to resolve the issue going forward.
Thank you, councillor Watt. Would you like to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Judy Smith. I am very happy to support this amendment, as I think it reflects the position of the room that we take very seriously what occurred between January 2018 and May 2019 and acknowledge that it was a failure of our Services Council, and we look to look at options going forward, which I think is in line with everyone's views here. And thank you to Councillor Judy Smith for pulling that together very quickly.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. We're up to,
I want to hear it again, please, Madam Mayor. if I
can we
may.
have another reading of the amendment, if you wouldn't mind, the first 2 points? And then the third point is,
Through the chair, the third point is that council conducts wide-ranging discussions in the lead up to the FY 24-25 budget to look at options to resolve this matter going forward.
Councillor West, is that
I'm still thinking.
anyone would like to comment? I'd just like to comment that I think that what we have in front of us, the recommendation we have in front of it is quite clear. It says that we acknowledge the failure and we're committing to appropriate measures to ensure curbside recycling in the future. And I think that the General Manager's comments that the lack of transparency we acknowledged lack of transparency at the time. Providing a refund would have to be paid for by those very same consumers that we've already charged, and it's not a sensible course of action. I absolutely understand that we feel like we've done the wrong thing and that the money should be somehow, in some way, there should be some recompense, but it is a very difficult thing to do. It'll take staff an awful lot of time, and I think the money could be better spent in educating our community to do better at recycling. And I think that's what we've done with the waste resource management strategy. I think we need to go forward and need to concentrate on that and make it worth everybody's while to recycle their products so that we can use it wisely. So that's my my say on the matter. Now, we need to say against amendment before for the amendment.
For, because we need to go forward, having on the fly, you know, we can't make these decisions on the fly. But I think that the amendment is appropriate, that the part that this recommendation doesn't address is the fact that we were given money to provide a service from the community and we took the money and we didn't provide the service. Going forward, what is needed is that those processes are clearly looked at and seen. This does not go far enough into that. We're getting told that we are going to commit to it, but in all our CSPs and everything else, we are committing to it. We're just not doing it. And we cannot expect our community to improve their recycling through our education programs if they are going to read this and they're going to see this on the news, they're going to hear this in a meeting, because this is the first time it's actually really come up publicly and it's maybe make a splash. Then they say, oh, well, they're not going to recycle it anyway, so why would we do that? So that's going to affect everything that we're trying to do with our waste management strategies and all those things going forward with targets that we need to meet going forward. So the community needs to have confidence in the fact that the council will recycle what they put in their bins, that things that can be recycled.
Thank you, Councillor Dunning. Councillor West.
Madam Mayor, I think your two choices that we either adopt the original motion or we defer the matter, and I'm going to speak against the amendment. I accept what Councillor Smith is saying and is trying to allude to, and I congratulate her, and that was probably part of what I was trying to say. I think a lot of this is coming out of dot point 2, to be quite frank. I have no doubt that we'll continue to discuss this as a council. I'm a little bit disturbed that the way we're doing this on the fly. We're talking about processes and suggesting that council hasn't got processes in place. We're talking about matters that occurred in 2000, 2018, 2019, not current practices, not current processes. We've been critical about the process, yet here we are trying to just do something on the fly. And I think that to be consistent, if we're going to sort of say that the processes aren't working properly, then we need to lead the way by saying, okay, we as a council will work on a process and people will be kept informed. I'm a little bit indignant, in fact, that the suggestion that processes or inference that processes by council aren't being followed, when this was a matter that happened in 2018, 2019, council is clearly putting their hand up and saying, hey, we got it wrong. We got it wrong. We know that there is an issue around recycling. We know there's an issue, there's a cost, a genuine real cost in putting material into landfill. So there has to be some form of consideration around all those matters. I think that dot point 2 allows us to discuss that, to continue to review that, and I have no doubt that this can be part of the conversation we have in terms of the operation delivery plan going forward. But to infer again that there are issues around process and to be pulling ARIC into this is really sort of, I think, going on a bit of a fishing expedition when the matter really is one thing, and that is that between January 2018 and May 2019, there was curbside recycling collected was put into the landfill. And council is clearly saying, we understand all the issues, we're clearly saying to the community, hey, we got it wrong, we're sorry. And we're telling you that, we're being upfront, we're being honest. Other conversations, these matters will be, I have no doubt, form part of ongoing discussions and considerations. But I go back to this thing, I have great respect for staff, I have great respect for this council, and I have great respect for, and I'm going to talk about councils that I've been part of, but I have great respect for councils prior to my time in this Cowra Council, and there's not very much evidence that people have been wrong or done the wrong thing, and processes have been ignored or just avoided deliberately and ignored. This was a mistake, and when council has the opportunity to acknowledge the mistake, we're putting their hand up and saying, yeah, we got it wrong. And I think dot point 2 covers the way forward appropriately and allows all these conversations, including what Councillor Delbo is saying, to fall out of further conversations around operational plans, delivery plans, etc.
Madam Mayor, point of order.
Yes, Councillor Smith.
In the amendment, there's no reference to ARIC at all. So I can't understand an opposition to the amendment based on that or any consideration that processes weren't followed.
The issue around ARIC has been raised on more than one occasion, quite substantially, and there have been comments made around processes as well. So my comments were general in nature, not specifically as listed in the document because they're not there. It's around the conversation within the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor West. Have we any further commentary?
I've got a question, please.
Look, Councillor Smith
Yeah.
indicated he would speak first, if that's okay.
The amendment's got me, I thought it was covered in 2.2, but the word options come in, that we should look at our options in the next financial year. I think that leaves the point of a refund for ratepayers up in the air. And I feel we need to deal with this tonight. I don't know what other options, when the word options is thrown up there, what are the options? Until we have a look, we don't know. And I just think we should deal with this matter tonight. Dot point 2 says to ensure curbside recycling or processing is maximised in the future. And we've already authorised a bigger slab out at the MRF so we can handle more of this recycling. We are on the way to doing as much as we can to maximise our use of recycling. And I just don't see why we don't deal with it tonight and leave option dot point 2 to do our work for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Have we got an insurance policy for instance like this where we fail to carry out our contract to the community that we could make a claim on, or the community could make a claim on to recover this money rather than coming out of the waste fund?
I'd have to take that on notice, but I would suggest no. Number one, there is no formal contract with the community. Council's imposing a charge on the community, as has been indicated in the legal advice you received. So we'll take that on notice and ask the insurer.
Thank you.
Well, I would appreciate if you could take it on notice. I just don't know how to work if it's becomes under public risk or something else. A lot of whether
Councillor Wright, are you
there's
going to
some-
speak for or against the amendment?
I'm about over it.
Well, how
The,
about we can...
No, but this is the mover of the motion is said, oh, he might defer number 2. Then someone put something up that sort of, it gives guidance to what we want done in number 2, but no, that's not satisfactory. It's, and people have made comments about ARIC and policies, but they're not mentioned in the amendment or what's there. So I would have thought you disregard that comment.
Are
It
you
seems,
speaking for the amendment or against the amendment, councillor Wright?
I'm speaking for the amendment, but the way it's going, the whole lot should be thrown out and it come back.
Thank you, councillor Wright. If no one wants any further comment, I'll put the amendment. Councillor Delbo.
Hi, thank you. I'd like to speak for the amendment, please. I firstly would like to start with some of the comments here tonight in regards to the ARIC. ARIC is responsible for council's risk management. I'm not aware of any other area that risk management is handled, and therefore it is the most appropriate place for risk management to come through that committee and then into the council chamber, which it does do, and hence we have a set of meeting minutes here tonight to look at. I at no point have blamed anybody for this. I have not singled anybody out, and I can actually appreciate that at the time that this activity had taken place, that council was also dealing with major issues with the Main Street upgrade. Drought was happening in our community. We had a councillor resign, so you were obviously down in numbers, and you were campaigning very hard to get a brand new hospital for our town, plus water security was an enormous issue as there was a drought. The word I think tonight for me is that we have a contract with our community. I believe that it is important, and the step for me that has been missed in this process is that for 16 months we did not communicate what was happening out to our community. I personally believe we have misled the community by not informing them, and by supporting this motion tonight, it enables us to look further into this matter, because I don't believe that we have got the end result yet. And again, this does not pass the pub test. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further comment, I'm going to put the amendment, the one that Councillor Smith and Councillor Watt have put and seconded. So I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour, or put your hands up, say aye. Those against, it looks like the amendment's carried. It becomes the motion. Do you want to speak, Councillor?
If someone else wants to speak, I'll reserve my right to reply.
Councillor Smith, would you like to speak for your motion now? No. Councillor Watt? Anyone else want to speak? Councillor West?
Very, very quickly, Madam Mayor, I think we've discussed this around the table. I think we understand fully people's sentiments, and there's probably not a great deal of difference in many areas of what we're trying to achieve here. I still believe dot point 1, dot point 2 do cover it, but the salient point in all this is that council is acknowledging that there was an error, and it's regrettable, and they're putting a hand up and saying to the community, hey, we got it wrong, and we should have told you. That's the simple crux of this whole conversation we need to remember. I have no doubt whatever happens tonight, we will continue to discuss this, because I know that waste recycling, etc., is incredibly important to this council and our community, and of course we've now got FOGO coming on stream as well, so there'll be more issues. But I just go back that there's an issue around here about process that we probably need to be conscious of.
Thank you, Councillor West. Any further comments about the motion? And right a reply, Councillor. You just had your right reply. I'll put the motion. The motion is the amendment. 1, 2, and 3. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much for the debate. Yes, it was. Yes. We all voted for it in the end, so I declare it carried. 6.1.
Just a question to councillor West. You made a comment about something coming on stream and that thing. What's coming on stream?
Can you take that offline, councillor Wright, and ask him later? That would be great. Thank you very much.
I think I was referring to a current rain event that's going to come in the stream will have it coming down the Lachlan River, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, number one, page 102, the section 355 committee draft minutes are for noting, and we have amendments to those draft minutes which were circulated earlier this afternoon, and they're in the pink folders. If anyone has any questions about those, or any questions, or somebody move that, Councillor Paul Smith, somebody second that, Councillor Bill West, and any Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Fagan. I acknowledge that there are updates in the wording of these minutes. I don't think you'll find they change any wordings. They are just fixing mainly typos and adding a little bit of information. I don't think that I've taken it that they will be online for people to look at.
Yes.
Anyone that is interested in it can have a look at the updated version. But again, it is only wording, and I think it's speaks for itself.
Councillor West.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'm happy to support the report. The minutes, I'm just skimming through them very quickly because I got off a track at 4:15 to get here for the meeting and I haven't had access to technology or whatever today. And I think other people would be the same. But quick skim, it's only just wording, particularly taking the word from poison to position out is probably an appropriate one to take out. I would take the opportunity to suggest to my colleagues after the last debate that if you're interested in the ARIC committee looking at some of this stuff, then that's an option this council might have in terms of asking what the ARIC committee might look at rather than go down the path we were going down. That's my old advice.
Thank you, Councillor West. Any further comments, or I'll
Got a question.
Councillor Wright?
10.2 under general business. The chairman, Ron Gillard, gave notice to the audit committee of his resignation from the position as chair as at the 30th of June 2024 to enable implementation of new guidelines at council discretion. Does that mean we'll be advertising for new outside delegates or
Director?
So through the chair, the new legislation comes into effect on the 1st of July this year. The process that we need to follow is that council needs to endorse a new terms of reference, which basically outlines the new legislation. That will need to come to council before any steps are taken in moving to the new guidelines. And that includes the reduction of the number of councillors on the committee from 2 to 1, and an increase of the number of independent members from 2 to 3. Ron took that step because council may have views around what that makeup of the committee would be, and saw it as a fitting step in allowing council to have a free choice going forward.
Can I just add to that? I think it also had something to do with that there is the time that the current community members are on it is a 4-year maximum. And we wanted to just make sure that the option was there should 1st of July come around, that they could actually apply for a 4-year tenure rather than as it could be 1 year or something to roll out the current tenure. So the understanding is that it's a whole new tenure starting the 1st of July.
Thank you, Councillor West.
just a follow-up question? That so therefore Mr. Toomey will be tendering a resignation. They'll all be resigning 30th.
Obviously hasn't. It's not in the minutes. Councillor Watt?
Just to clarify, is Mr. Gillard resigning from the role as chair or as a role of an ARIC member?
The role of chair.
So he remains an ARIC member.
Correct.
Thank you.
And if I could add, he'd most likely be reappointed as chair. So most likely, no, but I just, for general information, it's most likely that he'll probably be reappointed, yeah.
I'll just flag through the chair that Michael is looking to, trying to get a report to the April General Committee meeting on the implementation. So we'll look to cover some of those issues that have been either mentioned in the minutes or spoken about tonight.
Thank you. Okay, any further comment, right of reply?
I'll just make a point of,
Sure.
point of order in the last comment of Councillor Paul Smith. Until we adopted the new terms of reference and so forth, we shouldn't be making any conclusion about who might nominate or who might carry on.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Smith, would you like right of reply?
Thank you, Mayor Fagan, and I did use most likely, Councillor Rudd. That's
I
not,
don't care what sort of word you use. It was intended. You infirmed that you'll probably stay around, which we don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your opinion. I have a different one. The other point I would make to councillors that whilst we will be down to one councillor on the ARIC committee according to the new regulations, that councillor will not have a vote. They will be an observer only.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Now we're on to page 111, the minutes of the Extraordinary Tidy Towns and Urban Land Care Committee. Councillor Judy Smith and Councillor Erin Watt. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Quite a sad day, really. This Tidy Towns Committee has been going for a very long time, certainly far longer than I have had the pleasure of being associated with it. The recommendation comes in 3 dot points. The first one, that the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held in February be noted. The second 2 are recommendations that were unanimously endorsed by the Tidy Towns Committee. But of course, this is a Section 355 committee. It's a council committee, and it's council's decision as to whether the Tidy Towns Committee be in fact dissolved, and whether the funds that are held by the committee, and my apologies, I can't tell you exactly how much there is there, but possibly something in the nature of $14,000. But please don't hold me to that. So the recommendation is, and the committee would very much like to see those funds being used for sustainability education in some way. But again, of course, that's entirely in the hands of council. The only other thing that I would like to do here is to publicly say, as I said in my letter, which all councillors should have received as chair of the committee, a letter which was endorsed by all committee members also, that thanks are due to a good many people, and particularly past and present staff, Chris Kennard, and also current manager of Cowra Services, Pippa Childs, and Mark Tucker, who has stepped into the breach on many occasions when the manager of Cowra Services has been unable to attend meetings or unable to carry out other activities. And those 3 people and their staff have really gone above and beyond and enabled what has been a very small, ageing, and in some cases unwell committee to continue to function until the end of last year. So I do sincerely thank them. The only other comment that I would make going forward to looking at the NRM committee minutes, where they talked about wanting to take on the Tidy Towns recycled art competition, which is certainly something for them and council to discuss. And I thank them for that. I would just add that the director, Pippa Childs, has already, I believe, taken steps to publicise the regional net waste competition, which is a recycled art competition, and there's some idea that that might be able to take up the space there. However, those are considerations for other people.
Thank you. Councillor Watt?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very briefly, just to echo Councillor Judy Smith on congratulating the many people who've been part of the Tidy Towns Committee over the years and the staff that have participated. You've achieved a lot, and in particular to thank Councillor Judy Smith for the work she's done in this space as well. I think the values of the Tidy Towns Committee wouldn't be lost by choosing to dissolve this committee, but hopefully will be picked up as we transition into other elements of our community strategic plan around waste and environmental sustainability. So again, thank you to all those who've been involved, and thank you to Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor West?
Happy to support the recommendations and concur with Councillor Watt's comments about the committee. Can I just perhaps foreshadow a supplementary where we might just acknowledge certain people and certain things? A foreshadow supplementary?
Yes, I
Thank you.
think
Thank you.
that'd be appropriate. So we need to, anyone else would like to comment? So what were you foreshadowing? You want to write a line?
Put the motion.
You need to put motion. I think, yes, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
You haven't debated it.
I just asked you if you had any comment.
No, you didn't. You asked him, and he was going to add something about putting special people's name on there. And then you said you're going to vote on it.
No, I asked Councillor Judy Smith if she'd like to write a reply. And she
No,
said
you haven't.
I did. And
Well-
she said no. But would you like to comment, Councillor Wright? But I need to put the motion because I already called for a right of reply. Sorry, Councillor Wright.
Did you reply?
No, she didn't. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. And now, Councillor
If I can
West,
move a
you wanted to
supplementary
move
that-
something?
The council is formally acknowledge the contribution of the Tidy Towns Committee and Councillor Judy Smith, and that we write to all members of the committee and to Councillor Smith acknowledging their incredible contribution to the Tidy Towns Committee over a long period of time.
Thank you, Councillor West. I was going to suggest the third point. Yes. Seconder, Councillor Watt.
I think
Just a question there. So is Judy Smith the only name there?
No, a number of the committee. We're going to write to the committee and thank them very much for this
Thank you.
long-standing and very reliable support of the Tidy Towns Committee.
if I can speak to it without wanting to embarrass my colleague, that she has done an enormous job since she's been on council in keeping the Tidy Towns functioning, along with a very, very good band of willing workers. So I acknowledge their work, but also acknowledge in the chamber the work that Councillor Smith did in maintaining this 355 committee of council and reporting back to council. And a lot of hard work went into it, I know. So we should formally acknowledge that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor West. Any further comment?
Yeah, I was supplementary. I'd ask management to bring back to council how we can nominate villages or towns or any other part of that in the Tidy Towns Awards of New South Wales going forward.
Is that an amendment to the motion?
No, it's a supplementary
Supplementary? You'd like
because I'd like, seeing I'm deaf or ignorant or don't pay attention, I didn't get a chance to comment on that. You only spoke to your favourites, but I want to know, and I asked in the letter I sent back to Councillor Smith, thanking her for all that, I wanted to know how does the Tidy Town Awards continue on as one of the things.
Okay, we'll investigate that further. We'll leave that to take it on notice for the directors. Thank you, Councillor Wright. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Oh, we did. not the supplementary. I'll put the supplementary. All those in favour?
Madam Chair, you need to move the original motion. The supplementary motion is a separate motion. After that motion is
We
moved.
did it.
You've already done that one?
We voted on the first one. We're now moving the supplementary, and all those in favour?
Who's,
Those
who
against?
seconded that?
Councillor Watt. Against? All in favour? Carried. Carried. Move on. Now we're up to page 116, the committee draft minutes of the Access Committee meeting held on 26th of February. Okay. So, councillor note the draft minutes, councillor Watt and councillor West.
Could I please suggest an amendment? After speaking to Councillor Nikki Kiss, who was an apology today, we'd just like to suggest to the committee that they make a slight change in moving Robin Ambershear from present in the minutes to attending. Thank you very much.
That makes sense. It does show she's a guest.
Just in the top where the attendance is marked. It's not, she's in both sections.
Oh, she's in both. Yes, that's right. Thank you. With that amendment, thank you very much. If you would like to speak to that, Councillor Watt?
Just very briefly, that the Access Committee keeps working hard and very excited that they've got another member in their team.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Councillor West? Anyone else like to put? Councillor Downing?
Sorry, Peter, after me. I just want to congratulate Robin Ambershear for putting her hand up. She's a valuable member of the Senior Citizens U3A, and I think she'll have a great perspective going forward on the Access Committee, and I wish her luck.
Thank you, Councillor Downing. Anyone against the motion?
Question, 3.6 of the meeting, inclusive playground, it's recommended add to operational plan and DIAP, but was that recommended to come to council? Because it's not in dark print and it's not a part of the recommendation, so.
Councillor Paul?
My guess would be, Madam Chair, that they tend to have it included in the draft Disability Inclusion Action Plan that the Access Committee's been developing to come to council for consideration and placing on public exhibition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Now, page 120, we have the draft minutes of the Cowra Natural Resource Management Advisory Committee. Have a mover.
Yeah, I'll move.
Councillor Wright, seconder. Councillor Smith, Judy Smith. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. If you follow I'll answer any questions out of the minutes. Councillor Judy Smith took me by surprise when we said we'd run the RAFCA. That hasn't come to our committee. We haven't spoken about that at the committee. But what we did speak about was supporting education in recycling, part of what we discussed earlier, and help improve the recycling percentage at the tip. We had planned on having a workshop at the Cowra meat processors last Wednesday, but put it off to this Wednesday, and that's had to be cancelled because the owner has had either a personality clash or just a clash over the regulations with EPA. And it is operational now, but there was considerable time where he couldn't operate the facility, the digester, the capture methane and so forth, and generate electricity or flare it off. And they were threatening to charge him with pollution because he was going to let methane go into the thing. But it's been sorted out and it's operational, but he's just not comfortable with having the people on there that don't need to be there. So instead we're going to have a workshop with committee members, and Dylan Gow will be speaking about improvement and changes in the operation of digesters and their application. Other than that, we'll be talking. We're organising, hopefully, organise the Archie Bird competition again, and other relevant NRM committees. And if the Tidy Towns Committee is to be disbanded, and while they can't find something to resurrect it, we will look at what we can offer and going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wright. Second, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I just state that in the minutes of the 21st of February, item 4.2 in general business says that if the Tidy Towns Committee is ceasing, the NRM would like the opportunity to take on the Recycled Art for Cowra award.
It's quite obvious the chairman didn't pay attention at our NRM meetings or council meetings.
It was that was just a comment, obviously. So we have somebody speaking for these for the draft minutes, and somebody speaking against the draft minutes. We have anybody questions? Then we'll put the motion. All those in favour?
All right.
Right of reply, Councillor Wright. Sorry.
Nothing to reply to except my lack of attention.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you, carried. Now, we've got the late reports, and they are in a different section on your iPad, so you'll have to go out of what you've got there and into the late reports on the agenda. And page, it says 125, but it's actually a new. Has everyone got there? So the recommendation is that Council note the New South Wales Government's withdrawal or referral to IPART to investigate and report on the financial model for New South Wales councils, and that Council note the matter will now be considered by the New South Wales Parliament Standing Committee on State Development. As you can see, we have a letter from the Premier saying that. I need a mover, Councillor Smith and Councillor Watt. Sorry, I had a little blurb bubble. Would you like to speak, Councillor Smith?
No, Madam Mayor, I think it's self-explanatory.
Councillor Watt? Councillor West?
I fully support what's being said, but I think that we should make sure that we make some sort of a note somewhere that there were an opportunity to make some sort of a submission, that we do make a strong submission at the appropriate time, and I'm sure we will.
Yes, I think so. Yes. Any further comments?
Yeah, I thank you for General Managing updating us on this. It's probably better that we're not dealing with IPART, but they've left it late in the game to change it to the Standing Committee on State Development, and I hope that it does, because I thought we did have to have comments in by this beginning of this month or something. So. And there was comments they were going to take depreciation out and so forth, and perhaps they might be able to discuss the Rural Fire Service operations in this new thing too from the JO. So hopefully they don't keep finding bodies to shift it to, so they don't have to make a decision.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any further comment?
Madam Chair, I'll just clarify Councillor Wright's point there. The submissions on the draft terms of reference for the IPART inquiry closed 15 March, and we made a submission along the lines of what was included in the report to the February meeting, and subsequently on the following Tuesday it was withdrawn by the Premier. The terms of reference for the parliamentary inquiry, I'll get that out to councillors tomorrow. The submissions on that don't close until I think the 26th of April, and interestingly, of the seven points in the terms of reference, I think 4 of them refer to the rate peg or special rate variations. It includes matters around cost shifting and financial sustainability. So it certainly seems a bit more realistic than and appropriate, I suppose, than what IPART was proposing to do.
Thank you. Any further comment? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Now we have 9.2, which is the Community Grants Round 2 allocation of funds. It's on page 5 of 24 in the late reports. Somebody move that? Somebody move that? Councillor Smith, Councillor Delbo, thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I move it, given that it appeared no one else was going to, as the only member of the Community Grants Committee able to be here today, and reiterating that the first grant in the Arts and Culture section to the Woodstock and District Progress Association is one in which I played no part in determining, because I am a member of that association. However, there were, I think, something like 21 applications, so interest continues to remain high. Some of those applications were withdrawn, and some could not be assessed as they didn't fit with council's planning in certain areas. So we were left with 17 projects asking for an amount of something over $21,000. And I'm very pleased to say that they come from all sorts of different organisations, from sporting clubs to the Masonic Hall and the Uniting Church Food Hall, and from a number of the villages in the Shire. There continues to be strong interest there, and that's great to see. There were no applications in the new community events category, and that's something that the committee will need to look at if that is sustained. I think that's all that I will say. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Smith.
Yes, Mayor Fagan. I read that in the category arts and culture that the maximum assistance was $1,000. Sorry, I've looked at the wrong one. Withdraw my question.
Okay, Councillor Delbo, would you like your second?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Motion?
I actually am thrilled to be able to be in the chamber to actually vote on this. Normally one has to declare and walk out. So it's nice to see many groups here now being financially assisted to achieve their desired projects. The one that as Councillor Judy Smith has said, there's such an array of projects here on the page. The one that I suppose stood out for me is the Cowra Uniting Hall Food Hall. That service is growing quite quickly in need in our local community, and for them to want to continue to promote that in our community and to streamline the process by taking it online, I congratulate them for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Delbo. Any further comments? Just like to say that this is happening on Thursday morning. These grants are being allocated. If anyone would like to come, you all have invitations, but if you'd like to be here, then you're more than welcome, and it's always a very interesting morning. I'd also like to comment that, like council's infrastructure, a lot of these groups have ageing infrastructure, and by maintaining them, by giving them small gifts, they actually are able to maintain those, and I think that's important in our community. So I'll put anyone further comment? Councillor Smith, like a reply?
With apologies, just correct what I said before. I think it's 15 projects and 17,000 approximately.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any that's the end of it, and I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
As against? Carried. Thank you very much. That is the end of the late reports. Are there any urgent matters for motions without notice? If not, then we will now take a motion to close the meeting to the public to consider the following confidential report. Item 11.1, car park lease, 74 Kendall Street, Cowra. This matter is to be considered to be confidential under Section 10A(2)(di) of the Local Government Act, and the Council is satisfied that discussion of this matter in an open meeting would on balance be contrary to the public interest, as it deals with commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it. I declare the meeting has... I'm new mover, Councillor West and Councillor Downing. All those in favour? Aye. I carry. I close the meeting. Thank you.